Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Licensed Psychologist. Now what? This is your host, Dr. Lidiana Garcia, and today I am going to be talking about the part four of becoming a psychologist. And in this episode, it will be more about after I left agency work, which it was in 2018. Well, yeah, 2018. So about 3 years ago, and that journey that happened after that, and all the way to now, and all the way to the future. So let's dive in. Of course, a sound. There you go. Oh my goodness, I have no idea how this whole YouTube unedited, which my editor will take that piece out. Alrighty. So let's start with that journey. So in the last episode, I talked about I went, I got my degree. Let me just do a short summary. I got my degree, PhD in counseling psychology, completed my pre-doc, completed my postdoc, and then had a little time in between that I went to Puerto Rico, moved back, and then work in an agency that, for the most part, it had a lot of great things. And at the same time, I knew that was not what I wanted to develop in my future, my profession. I never aspired to be a director of a program or something. So then I moved to doing more of what I wanted, when she was supervising, solo supervising at the Chicago school. And for the most part, I loved that job. And at the same time, it was not enough pay to, you know, be enough for me or my family. And my prior practice at the same time, I was having it, building it slowly. And around spring 2018, I was getting a lot of referrals for psychological evaluations for immigration purposes, to the point that they were getting in the way of my part-time at working with the Chicago school. And I left. I took that leap of faith. I left in the summer so I could finish the internship there and don't let all the interns, you know, like there's no more supervisor. So it was really hard because during those months, I was working so much. Sometimes I was driving like around 2 hours to go to Adelanto, California, to go to the detention center to meet with the detainees and do the psychological evaluation for immigration purposes to help them with their asylum cases and um, yeah, and all of that. And then driving back 2 hours, 2 hours and a half back. And sometimes when I would get to the detention center, I think every time I went, there was more time that I had to wait. Sometimes they would say, "We don't know how long you have to wait." And sometimes I would wait like an hour and a half. And it was like too much. So when I left and I went full time, then it was so interesting because as soon as I started then in my office, like full time, they were not sending any more of those referrals for those evaluations. And at that moment, as a full, full practice, kind of like self-employed, that was like, what did I do? What did I do? I took this leap of faith of going full on my own. And at the same time, I'm not getting that referral. And that was a big chunk of, I would say like 50% of the income that was coming to my practice. I was also taking clients for medical because when I went, like in my private practice, I it's a way of getting clients, and I kind of missed my clients from the agency. And to be honest, I also felt that I did not had what it take or enough. Like I felt like imposter syndrome of charging and doing all these things. And in a way, I felt like by working with the medical clients, then they didn't have to pay anything. And I felt like back to what it felt comfortable. And at the same time, I was offering the same kind of good quality work that I was doing. And sometimes I would get no shows and then they wouldn't pay for the missed appointment with no excuse. And that started to build resentment because when I'm here getting paid like 50% less of my full fee, and then if the person wouldn't come, I wouldn't get paid that day. There was that build in resentment. And some of the cases that I was getting were needing more of my time after sessions, whether they were, some of them were teenagers and their parents needed to speak with me here and there. There were situations, and I like offering that, but that was also unpaid. So then I was like, this is not sustainable for me and my family. I'm not necessarily in a season of like overflow of financials and abundance that I can then provide. And I know some people might hear this and be like, you can do that even if you're not there yet. And I get that. But it was starting to get in the middle of my health as well, because then I was not having those options to provide those spaces for someone that could pay full fee. And then yeah, there was that building, like it was not reciprocal. So then I decided also to kind of like go and let go of Medical, which was another process. I believe I let it go 2019. So I still stay with it. But I had to give them like 3 months in advance or 6 months right now. I can remember. But there was that. The other thing that happened was that one of the clients that was bringing a lot of the income had a personal situation and couldn't continue. So then I was not getting the referrals from the detention center. I was then that client had that personal situation, and my income went from like about like got reduced like more than 50%. And my office was the same fee, right? I cannot go like, hey, I'm getting less income. Let me reduce my monthly payment, rent. So that started to get in the way because now I was building a little bit of debt, and the income expenses were not, I was not, the expenses were more. So for a business owner, that was also really hard because I've always felt, and I'm saying it past, and I still have feeling pieces of that, of being an imposter in terms of business, because I don't come from a entrepreneur family. I don't have that. And that was so scary because then, I have a family. And around that time, I got pregnant again, and I knew I was going to take some maternity leave. So there was going to be a lapse that I was not going to be able to do one on ones or do any kind of work. And this time, I was not going to take a maternity leave within an agency that I was getting somewhat paid for that leave. Now I had to like plan for it, but I couldn't that much plan for it because a lot of the things that were bringing lots of the income, they were no longer present. So it was a lot. From a business perspective, I felt the contraction. I felt like at the beginning, when I opened that private practice, that office, when I took that lease in 2018, it was like an expansion. Like I was getting too many referrals, so I got psych assistant and all that. And then very fast, within a year, then I felt an immense contraction. Something else that was happening around that time was that I was also building resentment for all the activities and events that I was doing unpaid. I took, um, I work with she's well, I okay, this is the part that Susanna can take out. But yes, I work with a public relationship. I don't know how to, yeah, PR, to help me build the brand and all that. And as a business owner, it was it was not the most savvy decision, again because my income at that time was much less, but I had this hope, like if I got that, I got more visibility, I did more stuff, that I was going to, the income was going to start increasing. Well, that was not happening, and within 2 3 months, a lot of more stuff was happening in terms of, clients that were quote unquote graduating or not continuing. I was getting sick and getting a lot of colds because of the overworking. I was finding myself going to do free workshops and participating in panels and in events. sometimes in the evening, sometimes on Saturday, some on Sunday, to get my work out there. But those, most of them, I would say all of them, a lot of what I did was unpaid. Like 90% of the ones that I did was unpaid. And I know it was part of the process to get me get known in the community, because I did not grow up in Los Angeles. I did not go to school here. So I don't, I'm building my friends, my colleagues, and all that. So people don't necessarily know me that well here. And at the same time, that was building the resentment, because here I was sacrificing time with my family. My oldest was like, at that time, I only had one child. He was struggling with it. He's like, "Mommy, you're not here." I was like, sometimes working at night, because those events I was going in person, but they were at night. So that was impacting the dinner routine and the sleeping routine that was usually part of it, with reading books and connecting with my son. And then Saturdays was also like a family day, and I was going, sometimes even traveling like an hour in traffic, and then being in those events for like 2 3 hours and coming back, so like missing like 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday. And my son, again, like, "Mommy's not here on Saturday, she's doing something and I'm with daddy." And then it was also adding stressors on my husband, as he works full time, and then on Saturdays he was taking, he was being a dad. and and then I would come, and I would also come tired, so then sometimes he would give me more time, but then it was now like eating time from his own self-care and his own time as well. So, and I was not getting paid for all of this. Let's put that in perspective. And we were having some, I was paying for gas, clothing, all these things. I was, besides building the resentment, besides feeling like, what am I doing? Is this the way? Like, how much longer can I go like this? Like, sacrificing all this time and over giving. And people were like, this is so helpful, but there was no reciprocity. Until one day I was like, I kept hearing the word rest. You need to rest. You need to rest. Around that time, my dog also died suddenly. And I think that helped me a lot. When Coco died, when she died with me, it was the summer of 2019. I was like, I can't keep going this way. I also had a very kind of eye opening, because in my family, like I mentioned, like I have a very comprehensive family history. Part of it includes cancer, breast cancer. And I was doing some tests, and there was something that came up. And I mean, thank God it came as not cancerous, but there was that little scare as well. And around that time that my dog died, that little scare, I was like, if you keep going this route, you can bring that more, because resentment, anger, stress, and all those things produce inflammation in the body. Inflammation can, all these other things. And I decided, you need to stop, and I'm going to stop. But that also meant that I was going to let some people down. Like the person that I had the contract, the PR contract, was also, we were building a relationship as a friendship, and I let her down. And that was really hard, because as a people pleasing, letting people down, it's like it's so hard. But I had to own my truth. And and yes, and that was really hard, and I feel like it still is hard to even share this with you. But when you hear that intuition telling you something and you do it, even though it was hard, at the same time it was so freeing, because then I was like, wow, if I let, if I was able to do this and go through it. And yes, there were some disappointment, the relationship kind of like got rocky and all that, and the person was hurt, and understandable, and I impacted all of that. And at the same time, I listened to me. So I felt that sense of freedom, that sense of like, I'm not going to do this again. I left an agency work, and I brought with me the same motives of operating the business. I was still operating from a go, 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 overwork, and all these things. And now I did not have any supervisor, but I had that internalized supervisor in me. And I was like, this is ridiculous. You left that because of that, and you ended up burning out yourself, even in a shorter time, that does not make sense. So I was at that point, I was like, there has to be something else. I let go everything and I literally did not. I think I took a break from the, Beyond Resilience Life podcast. I mean, I was still seeing my clients, but I let them know about that I was ending medical. I did not take anything. If somebody would call me, I'm like, I'm not available. And it took me like about a month of that kind of dark, like fertile void stage of not knowing what will be my next chapter, but trusting that something will come. And lo and behold, I got pregnant. So then that also prompted me to go even deeper. I feel like my kids have helped me, which it sucks to think that way, but it's the other side. My kids have helped me to put things in perspective and to be like, what do I need? Like what is my priority and what do I want? And that really helped me to kind of like get from all this craziness over here to kind of get more laser focus of what do I need to do to bring sustainable money that is enough at the moment. I'm not necessarily in a stage of expansion. I just need enough that we can feel sustained and we build a respectful reciprocal relationship of my time and what I do and what I give. And at the same time, then later on, maybe I can start opening. And then the pandemic, and then my mom developed an illness and I went and help, and it was a very severe and serious one, and she's overall okay, but that was really scary. And then the pandemic hit. So I feel like all those things continue to tell me like there has to be another way. I also joined a program with Kate Northrup, and her program at that moment it was called Incubator, Origin Incubator. Right now, her company it's rebranded into the Origin Company, and it was like a mastermind. And I joined like around October, November, because I saw her speak and she talked about kind of like I felt like she was in my head. Like she was running business that way in a very kind of masculine way, and how to start changing business for more of a feminine and more of cyclical and all of that. So I joined that program and that was helpful. The pandemic happened and that impacted the experience as well. But in general, overall, I felt like during those 10 months, me being exposed to that message that there's a different way, that there's more of a feminine way, and all that really helped. And then everything else happened in terms of all the racial uprising that has always been there, but now it's in our face. And and then it was like, wow, there's so much more that I'm working through, that I'm learning about, and how to run my business, not only from a different way, more sustainable and all that, but also like taking in consideration and not continuing doing sketchy marketing. Because a lot of things that I learned for marketing online business kind of works, but it's very manipulative. And I was like, whoa, I'm learning this and I was applying all that and that doesn't go with me. There was like but they're the ones that know, right? So I should just do what somebody else has been doing that, and it's making lots of money that way. So so there's been a lot of unpacking this years. And something that I would say that has worked for me in terms of what changed, besides letting go of all those things that I mentioned, I would kind of like have here like a little list and I'll share with you on what changed. And number one, reinventing ways to operate my business in a more sustainable and regenerative way. One, boundaries. I This is still an area of growth. I'm not on the other side, and what is the other side anyways, but I'm not there yet. I'm in the journey, which I'll be until I die. So this is what I've learned, and and everything is a work in progress, right? So some of the boundaries that I created is with emails. And I don't respond to emails like in off hours, meaning evening, Saturdays, Sundays. And I created now like I'm still kind of figuring out if people are receiving it, but I have an automated reply that has this policy of all of this. But I don't respond to emails in the evenings, Pacific time, or in the weekends, or the days that I don't work. Mondays, I I am with I'm just with my youngest child, so I it's really hard for me to work. If I work, it's more when my husband gets here. Whenever I've tried to work while taking care of kids has been crazy. I end up feeling the worst. Of course, I've done it here and there, especially if I'm in the middle of a lunch or something. But for the most part, I have that policy with emails. Also, no more free events. And of course, that's like 90% of truth. And there'll still be some cases here and there if I feel like they're heartfelt, aligned, and all that. But I stopped doing free events and workshops, free speaking engagements, and stuff like that because I'm not there. This is not my season. And accepting that this is not my season of life. I have two little kids in a pandemic. One was in, I'm so happy that my oldest was in transitional kindergarten instead of kindergarten last year. This year he's in kindergarten. But yeah, so I was like a new kid in school, a newborn. My business suffered because of financial hit because of the times that I was not seeing clients when I took maternity leave for 2 months and a half. So all those things I have again a babysitter and all that. So I'm not in a season of of giving a lot of my time or giving a lot of free things because when I do that, I am suffering. It's not coming from an overflown or a cup that has enough liquid. It's coming from an almost empty cup. And I am learning that whenever I do that, because I still here and there do that, it has to be matched. I have to really feel it because otherwise I keep building resentment. And then who's eating that resentment? It's me and anger and all that. It's not helpful. So that's another one that I'm creating. The other one is limiting sliding scales. Yes, some of my clients that I had situations because of the pandemic and I kind of like, and to be honest, it's almost like 50% of my caseload is in some kind of sliding scale, which eventually what I would like to do is more like a 30% or something like that, not necessarily a 50. And at the same time, listening and that's it. There's no more sliding scale slots available right now because of that. And until it gets more to a 30, 70. And the other thing is the hours of operation, family schedule. So interesting because I'm recording this. I am still have a container right now, a mentorship program. And initially when I created that in February 2021, when I was creating the whole program, I was like Saturdays because and kind of like evenings, like around 5 or 6, some of the other calls. But it was when my baby was still a newborn, and in a way that was kind of like Saturdays was okay, and 5 to 6 was fine because of the sleeping routine was a little different. And then summer came, now she's 1, and the sleeping routine is different. And Saturdays, again, I kept hearing my oldest, and my husband now was taking care of 2 kids. It was so much. So I did ask the participants, and a lot of them were fine. The majority were fine with changing it from, and I was not seeing anyways, I created them to be more accessible, and still I was not getting, sometimes I was getting more people joining the live call on the weekday than on Saturday. Because a lot of us, even though that is our free day, we are doing so much of online work that Saturdays is like, we need a free day. So then I shifted it to the week. And now, as I'm creating the new coaching program, I'm also even changing the times to be a little bit early when I do still have childcare. Because what happens is I was making these calls after the childcare leaves and my babysitter cannot stay longer. And that was also something really hard because I'm managing hearing kids running and screaming and all that. And I feel like it takes me a little bit away from here, from being with the participants. So like I'm always, not always, but I'm constantly in this exploration. What is working for my family schedule? What can I do? And down the road, I'm gonna have probably like, sport practices and stuff because my son says that he wants to be an athlete and participates in the Olympics and all that. So that might change again, and that's okay. I'm building a business that also satisfy my family needs. And for the longest, I remember how I was raised was much more about responsibility and all this kind of things, and we forget I am we're a family, and I'm it's a business that I'm building. So if I'm building it, I can build it that it goes accordingly to my needs as well, not only about everyone else's needs. So that in itself, that shift has been really like good for me because it feels like it's also like regenerative to me. It's like feeding me back to what I need, and it's more sustainable. So the other thing is simplifying processes. This is also something a work in progress. Before recording this podcast today, I was in a call with my podcast producer talking about simplifying more as I'm opening now the space to interview other people. So simplifying the processes and automatizations and stuff like that for people to schedule when they're going to be guests and emails that go out with the information that they need to fill and all that, and making it as simple as possible. That's why I also use like systems that are like comprehensive and average, have a lot of those systems within, like Kajabi. It is expensive, but it helps me with my situations. Like I have most of all my business tools within it, and now even this podcast is within Kajabi, which is awesome. The other system that I use is Calendly, and that's the one that I upgraded so I can automate, sending emails, sending reminders, and getting all those informations instead of having my podcast producer have to like, go on email and create an email and all that. And the other system that I'm using that I'm recording this podcast is Quadcast. And I'm also like upgraded so I can record video so I can add it to YouTube. So those are some of the processes and systems that I've created. Excuse me, in terms of clients for the private practice, I kind of mentioned that I created that automatic reply that has the policy, the times of operation, what to expect, the link to schedule. I also let go of the schedule. I was holding on people texting me or calling me to schedule the appointments. I let go of that. They all have my older in terms of age clients, then I do it for them because that's easy. It's okay, like one or two. But everyone else just has the link. They can check my schedule and they self schedule. At the beginning, that was hard for me to let go of that. It's been a year and it's been amazing. And I love it because I don't have to be in the system. Simple Practice is the one that I use for that. Sends them reminders via text or via email about it, and I have them so they can get the reminder 48 hours prior. And they have the policy that I have is if you cancel within 24 hours, less than 24 hours, then you pay for the session. So that way they have like about 3 days before the appointment to kind of like remember in case they schedule like something in 3 weeks and now they got a text, oh my god, it's in 3 weeks, wait, I have something. So that way they can tell me. Interestingly enough, I have very few clients that then contact me that they need to cancel, and they can also cancel within the system, which is awesome, and they can reschedule there. So that piece has been really good as well. The other thing is getting help, assistance, and that's the piece that right now I feel like I have a podcast producer, and her name is Rosanna, and she's amazing. And she's the one that takes this episode. After I record it, I put it on a Google Drive. That's my part, recording it and putting it in a Google Drive. And then from there, I send it to the editor. Her name is Susanna, and she's amazing as well. And um, maybe I can add, Susanna, if you can send me also your contact information if you are looking more for more business, I can put it here in the show notes as well. But I have Susanna, and she lives in Colombia, and she's the editor for this podcast. And then I have Rosana Garcia, Stella. Stella Garcia, I think. She is the podcast producer and also a friend. And I can also, Rosanna, if you can add over here in the show notes as well, your contact. So if people are looking for podcast producer, they can get your contact information. And then I also have an amazing graphic designer. Her name is Ana Marie, and she lives in the Philippines. And also, we can put over here in the show notes Ana Marie contact. Um, and I think she was really busy this month, but but you can contact all of them, and I'm like transparent here about the help that I currently have. I'm definitely looking for more help. I am in the process of thinking what will be the position and all that and the timing, but I am definitely needing someone that helps more with community management part, like like with some of the emails and some of like if there's any situation with payment plans and engage the new groups and the current ones and all those things and kind of like keep me like kind of like assistant to me, like if I'm missing something and like those double extra pair of eyes to look at things. Because sometimes I'm not the best at details, and some of the details maybe you've seen, things kind of like just slide by. So that's something else that I'm considering, and also trying to figure out the process for calling back potential clients because I've tried different things and they haven't worked. And yeah, I that's something else that I probably gonna need to get more help down the future. And some people will be like, well, that's a lot of extra money and all that expenses. And there is. And I bet that if I would be doing it all, then I would, the expenses will be less. But I can't. Listen, me no use, I can't. I am not taking that choice. I, I am really prioritizing my mental health and my time and my season of life with the little kids. So I'm not going to be editing podcast episode. I am, for the most part, I'm not going to be doing graphic design, even though I enjoy it and I have Canva Pro. And sometimes I have to do some because if I need them right away or any changes, and I'm at ease in the Philippines, so the time, change and all that. So I can do it. I can also post podcasts and, I know how to upload and all those kind of things. And I think that's important that you kind of at least have an idea of the things, because if you need to down the road, well, if one of your assistants or help kind of doesn't continue working with you, to know that could be part of the fear of hiring help. Sometimes it's like, well, now I'm depending on them. And for someone that comes with trauma and have learned to self-rely, it is so important. Depending on someone else can be scary. So I hear you, and at the same time I am willing to take that risk so I can really expand and really work more from my magic, which is sharing this information and creating workshops and stuff, like connecting with people more so than doing all those little detail things that some people love it. And that's what is amazing about this world, that there's people that really love doing different things. So finding someone that's their expertise, that's what they love, so that way you can do what you love, and nuances obviously about that not taking advantage and all that. The other thing is not following every idea or impulse. I've operated from that in the past and it has led me nowhere. And I'm that for human design, I'm a generator. I get lots of ideas all the time. Ooh, this sounds great. And I can go in my mind, ooh, this sounds great. And it reminds me when I used to choreograph dancers, then dance performances and stuff. Like you get the image in your head and you're like, the people are gonna do here, and then with this music change, they're gonna do that. So I'm in a way like I'm a stage manager and I get lots of ideas and I can go really fast in developing the idea. And it's like, okay, now how do I put that idea that it's here in my head into fruition? And that part takes a lot of work. So I am not following, which has been so freaking hard. For those that know me, for those that are like, wow, Liliana did another podcast and then I do that. It believe me, I am functioning from like 25% of the ideas that I get. And it's hard because I feel that push, that impulse, and that sense of urgency that sometimes is, it's being fueled by fear, by uncertainty, by previous traumas, by fear of not having enough money and all that. Yes, and sometimes it is also being fueled by intuition and ideas. So now I'm able to be like, oh, I don't have to follow through all the ideas right now. So I write them. I have notes that sometimes I'm out and about with my family. I get this idea, and I'm the type of person that if, and maybe I can work through this, but for now, if I don't write it down, then it goes away. So I write it down, the idea. And I know some people, I've heard that sometimes when they get a lot of ideas, it establishes boundaries, which I that's something to look forward to down the road, of being telling that idea, okay, right now I can't pay attention to you, and this sounds really cool, but can you come back? Like if you really want to come and manifest via me, please come back again later on. That sounds great. I'm not there yet, but that's something to look forward to. And the other thing is connecting to my inner calling, really going back to not necessarily, I mean, I've done like vision boards and all those kind of things of manifesting, the basic stuff. And it's not necessarily that, it's more about what suits my heart. What gives me that sense of being alive? Like, woo, I want to do this now. What makes my heart explode? What are those moments that when I'm doing my magic and my medicine, I get teary eye and goosebumps from the work, and really focusing and expanding that and going with it, which in a way, this podcast came that way. I had a podcast and I'm like, I have this podcast. Why are you getting this idea of a new one? Like, no. And I thought of putting this episode within the other one. I'm like, but it's a complete different audience. I mean, somewhat. This one is way more for healers, psychologists, psychotherapists, right? And I know a lot of healers, psychotherapists, and psychologists can listen to the Beyond Resilience Live because it's more about general. But that one was more for the general population, and this one is more niche. So like, and I kept hearing that idea, and I kept meditating on it, and be like, that sounds like a lot, until like I let it marinate and let it kind of like be a little more still before doing it. Trying to tap to the more stillness energy of those ideas and things that want to come through me. Something else that I think really helps with that is connecting with the soul of my business. This one I will give it to Nisha Moodley. Nisha introduced me to this concept back in October 2020, when I was part of Kate's Origin Incubator, and in the retreat that Nisha was of the guest speakers, and she got us facilitated a workshop about the soul of our business and facilitated a meditation on that. And that was very eye opening for me. I noticed how I was like, I had all this internalized oppression, colonizer, like the supremacy, all these things that I was trying to make this newer version, the Beyond Resilience Life business, kind of like produce money right now, ATM. And it was like a new baby. So, like, connecting to that and seeing my business like its own entity, that it's coming through me, it's connecting through my soul through me to come into fruition. It's like ideas that are out there in the world, in the ether, and are coming into fruition via people. So like really respecting that is a co-creation, collaboration, and changing that. It's still a work in progress, but changing that has been so significant. I feel like I've been able to get out of my mind like what sounds good, what I can do and what I can bring me money, versus what am I here to do, and how can I show that and present that out there, and what will be reciprocal in terms of money for me as an exchange of the time and the energy. I can say so much about that, and I might have, hopefully I can interview Nisha down the road to speak a little bit about this, because I think this is definitely her expertise, and she also has a course on it as well. The other thing has been connecting with my spiritual beliefs, especially during this crazy time. And part of my spiritual beliefs have been more of internal. I was raised, as you heard, Catholic. I don't consider myself Catholic or even Christian. Um, and connecting to that spirituality is connecting to that sense of God, the creation. Lately has been a lot about nature, and animals and all that. A lot of birds have been like spirit animals or connecting to me. Like I'm seeing a lot of birds, or seeing a lot of activities of birds around me, and paying attention to the stillness of it, nature, flower, plants. And sometimes I use some oracle cards when I want to like get some guidance. Um, I am more of a Palo Santo than sage, or but like really exploring what are the roots in terms of the Taino, the indigenous communities that were in Puerto Rico when the Spaniards came and then brought African. So connecting to that and really slowing down with that. Sometimes I put music that helps me to connect to that sense of spirituality, sense of what I believe. I believe in reincarnation and um, in my soul and what is the purpose of this life in particular. Learning about it, asking for guidance, asking for teachers, and when I get teachers, really tuning in because I have gotten teachers or people that are experts in something that I'm interested in that I feel that is not a good match energetically because there's a lot of people that are proclaimed, self-proclaimed spiritual teachers and stuff like that they might not be doing that. It might be a fake and all that. So I really want to connect with kind of connecting back to me. So sometimes it's just quietness and just sitting. But for the most part, it is connecting via nature, walking and seeing nature and all that. That's been my way, going back with him. But that's been so, so helpful. And as you've even noticed, as I'm talking about this, about connecting to my inner calling, the soul of the business and spirituality, I'm even feeling way more grounded. I feel my body heavier. The energy feels more settled. My feet feel in the ground and all that. So that's part of that. Also, like embodying it and being aware of my body, being aware of do I feel here? Do I feel like that? Do I feel like with energy rising? Do I feel nervous? Do I feel anxious? What do I sense in my body as a compass as well? Returning to dreaming of what if I I do what I came here to do? What if things can go well? What if humans, wake up to the hurt that they're doing to nature, to others, and work back into more of a collaborative? What if, like, really going back to that optimistic view that got me here? And believe me, I did study a lot of psychodynamic theories, and I've heard a lot of deep, hard traumas that could have got me into a very much of pessimistic outlook of life. And something that has helped me hold me tight here is that connection to spirituality, the belief that I do believe that human beings are inherently good, that things happen to them and that kind of like makes their thoughts cloudy or gets in the way because they're hurt. But I do believe that if we take that hurt away, what you will find inside is inherently good. And that's something that I feel comfortable saying and owning it. And lastly, has been joining communities of entrepreneurs and masterminds that are alike. I've I'm a student of life right now. I'm in one. I'm in Nietzsche's Mudli's, um, the Devotional Leadership Council, which is a group of 11, and with her is 12 of us that are getting together in circle and connecting, and she's guiding us, and but she's also part of it. And we're also teaching each other and helping each other. So doing all those things have been really helpful in this journey of changing the course of the pattern that I was going, the path that I was going, that was not helping me. And like I said, it's still a work in progress. I'm not where I don't want to say like I'm not there yet because I am here and this is good enough. And at the same time, I'm still working and I still be aware of things that I want to continue to change to make my business and my life be more sustainable and regenerative. So that's my message for you. That's my hope for you. I hope this episode in this series got you thinking into where are you in your journey and what do you want to do and how can you change systems and doing things to help you and your family at your current season of life. to take into consideration seasons of life and cyclical living, and how can you live accordingly so you can be well as well. That's my hope. And that's the whole intention behind doing this 4-part episodes. And for the podcast itself, because as I'm bringing the guests, is to bring again the same questions. So that's about it of my journey of becoming a psychologist, becoming a healer, coming back to me. As I'm ending this, I want to remind you of the current offering that I have in terms of which I changed the name from mental health practitioner. And I mean, it's now mental health practitioner coaching program because it's more of a coaching than a mentorship. I'm really coaching, and the guest speakers is really coaching those that are called for this offering to go back to them, like jumpstart the journey of becoming the psychotherapist, psychologist, healer that they're meant to be, in a way that it's authentic to their calling and that it's sustainable and regenerative. Part of it will include uh, uh, virtual, because of COVID, retreat about Heal the Healer, to really kind of start teasing out what is getting in the way of you tapping with your calling, with your authenticity, and what you came here to do. And then in the next months, which is going to be approximately 4, of diving deeper. There's going to be some lessons that are going to be pre-recorded that you can look at more about the tools, but the calls are going to be like coaching calls to really bring situations, ask questions, get mentored and coached by me and by the participants in it to help you jumpstart that journey. What that means is either you can create a plan for you to create your new offering, you can launch your plan through it, or you can really get clear and start, working towards problem solving and strategizing it. So that is the idea for that offering. Right now I'm opening the slots for application and the discovery call, which is part of how to get, how to get the participants in. So if you're interested, follow the link here. And if you know someone that could benefit, I would greatly appreciate that you send it to them. The same goes with the podcast. This is my call, my ask, not my call, which is hard as a woman of color asking for help. But I really am asking for your help. If you find that this podcast so far has been helpful, then share it with someone else. This is a way that by sharing it and liking, subscribing, and rating, and providing that feedback, it's going to help to bring more visibility so more people can see it. So that humbly, I'm asking for that help. That will be for you, for the listener that is still listening here, to share it and all that. And lastly, I know I keep saying that, but really lastly, if you are interested to sharing your story, please send me an email. I am gathering guests and I am starting to interview some for the podcast. This is not about me. This is about all of us, the collective healing. So I look forward to hearing from you. And until then, take good care and know that wherever you are is where you're meant to be and that you can always change the path. Bye.